Good afternoon. Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services on this Monday afternoon. It's so great to see you all here. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assembly members Dahlia, Edgeworth, Gonzalez, Goulding, Gray, Hafen, Hibbets, Hunt, Jackson, Koenig, Nadeem, Wynn, Ornlicker, Chair Brown-May.
And I am here. Thank you so much. I'd like to officially welcome everyone here in Carson City to today's meeting, everyone in Las Vegas, and then those who are joining us online. I would like a couple of housekeeping reminders as we get ready to start. Please silence your electronic devices. As I've said previously, you don't want to be the one person that has your favorite ringtone go off in the middle of a presentation. If you wish to testify, please sign in at the table by the door and provide a business card. When testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state your name and affiliation for the record, then turn off the microphone when it's time to listen. Electronic copies should have been given to our committee manager by noon if you have handouts. Members of the public may provide testimony on a bill either in person or by telephone. To do so, please call 888-475-4499. When prompted, provide the meeting ID, which is 861-4636-3028, and press pound when prompted. Public comment will be taken today at the end of the meeting, and each person will be limited to 2 minutes. Please be reminded that we expect courtesy and respect in all of our interactions during today's meeting, even if we may not agree with another person's position. Committee members will also be using their laptops and other electronic devices to view handouts. With that, welcome officially to the meeting. I will now open the hearing, which is our one agenda item today on Assembly Bill 19. If you would please step forward, Attorney General. We're happy to have you here with us today. You may begin whenever you are ready.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Brown-May. Thanks so much for having me, and members of the committee. Great to see you all. My name is Aaron Ford, and I am your Attorney General. Again, honored and delighted to be here with you. In the audience with me are two of my colleagues here in Northern Nevada, my Chief of Staff, Teresa Benitez Thompson, and my colleague, Mike Morton. And in Southern Nevada, I'll ask her to come to the table to present with me is my colleague, Dr. Terry Kearns, who works on the Substance Use Response Working Group with me as well. As I've indicated, my name is Aaron Ford, and it is my honor to serve as your Attorney General here today to present Assembly Bill 19 for your consideration. Again, Dr. Kearns, my office's opioid coordinator, is down there in Las Vegas with us to help with the presentation. The statewide Substance Use Response Working Group, or the SURGE as we call it, was created by the legislature in 2021. SURGE is responsible for recommending ways to create, maintain, expand, or improve programs aimed at addressing substance misuse in Nevada. Additionally, the group advises the state on the allocation of state and local funds to support these efforts. Through a diverse membership, SURGE produces an annual report with recommendations on the allocation of these funds, as well as policy and legislative recommendations. NRS 548.460 details the 18 members of the SURGE who represent government entities that oversee the provision of human services, treatment providers, law enforcement, advocates for those who have suffered with substance use disorders and their family members, as well as harm reductionists and prevention professionals, hospital and school representatives, and Nevada legislators. Throughout the course of SURGE's meetings in 2024, members of both the Nevada District Attorneys Association and Nevada's Department of Indigent Defense Services requested the SURGE consider adding a member from their respective groups. Additionally, SURGE members identified other groups whose work is affected by substance use disorder and should be represented in the working group, such as emergency response professionals, the Division of Child and Family Services, and the public at large. The SURGE membership voted on and approved moving forward with this proposed legislation to increase the representation on the SURGE because the members felt these important voices could be impactful by adding these additional member representatives. You will see in Section 1 the addition of the various individuals whom I've just described. Chair, with your permission, I'll briefly provide a justification for each of these proposed additions to the surge membership. As regards a member of the general public, there have been numerous requests from members of the public to participate in the surge. Some are prior surge members whose terms have expired, but others are people interested in or who have personal experience applicable to the work of the surge. As regards emergency response professionals, they are those who are on the front lines of response to the drug crisis currently occurring in the United States. Emergency response workers have seen an increase in the number of overdose calls over the years. Currently, law enforcement is represented on the surge, but there is no representation from this important first responder community who are partners in responding to overdose calls. Moving on to representatives of the Division of Child and Family Services, a sizable number of children involved in the child welfare system are children who were removed from their homes due to some type of substance use involvement. Approximately 74,000 children in the United States were removed from homes and entered foster care due to parental substance use in 2021. This represents 36% of child removals. Funding priorities for families and children affected by the opioid epidemic could be stronger with representation from people who serve children that have been affected by the substance use aforementioned. As regards the director of the Department of Indigent Defense Services, that department was created in 2019 and has been tasked to provide oversight and resources for public defenders, especially in rural Nevada. According to the Office of Analytics with DHHS, the Department of Health and Human Services, from 2010 to 2020, emergency department encounters alone involving opioid use increased by 67%. During this same time, opioid-related overdose deaths increased by 5%. There is a high probability that these same individuals at some time had contact with the criminal justice system. This is because people with substance abuse and mental health issues are disproportionately represented in the incarcerated populations across the United States and in Nevada. A large percentage of individuals navigating the criminal justice system have underlying life circumstances and non-legal issues that played a role in landing them in the criminal justice system in the first place, such as drug addiction, mental illness, or family or housing instability. The traditional public defense model that we see in the rural communities of Nevada is one that, due to scarcity of adequate resources, focuses almost exclusively on criminal representation, to the neglect of the underlying issues that resulted in criminal charges. Public defenders in Nevada's rural counties have limited access to licensed social workers or other resources to address these underlying life circumstances. Because the underlying issues which brought the individual into the criminal justice system are not addressed, individuals are serving more time in custody at taxpayers' expense, or may be rearrested in the future. The Surge believes that including a public defense perspective in this conversation will provide an opportunity for early intervention in opioid addiction. And then finally, representation of the Nevada District Association's conversation could begin right here as well. And beginning in 2007, with the creation of Governor Jim Gibbons' working group on methamphetamine use, and continuing through 2017 with Attorney General Catherine Cortez Masto's substance abuse working group, at least one representative of the District Attorney's Office has meaningfully served on statewide committees designed to combat substance abuse. We believe that allowing the NDAA to resume its traditional role will complete Surge's interdisciplinary mosaic and foster comprehensive strategic plans and programming to address substance use and substance abuse in Nevada. Thank you, Chairperson, for considering this proposal from the Substance Abuse Working Group and the Office of Attorney General. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate that you are taking time out of your schedule to be with us here today to present the bill personally, and so I appreciate your time and energy relative to this. Members, we have questions. I believe we're going to start with Assemblymember Jackson.
Hello. Thank you, Chair. Who is responsible for bringing on the Executive Director of Indigent Defense Services?
That would be the governor's prerogative. Aaron Ford, for the record, incidentally.
Thank you. Anyone else, members? Any other? Assemblymember Haven.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Attorney General Ford, for being here today. My one question is with expanding the board, I see there's already a number of members, and so I'm just kind of curious, sometimes when you have too big of a board, it becomes inefficient, and so I'm curious how the current board is handling the workload, being efficient, and maybe you could also touch on how you foresee this expansion making it more successful.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I forgot to ask, so I'll go direct or through you? Very good. Thank you, Leader Hafen, for your question. Aaron Ford, for the record. You are correct that the larger committee sizes get oftentimes the more difficult it is to fulfill your goals. But in this instance, I don't have that fear. We frankly meet, it seems like every other month, and Dr. Kearns may correct me, it may be quarterly, but we meet quite a bit. We have a lot of subcommittees as well. We are assisted by a contractor who helps us to organize and to ensure that we are getting our tasks done. I chair the meeting, but I am surrounded by folks who are absolutely marvelous at executing on the topics that are of import to the committee. Their suggestion was to increase the committee membership. I support that particular suggestion, and I do not think that it will impede. In fact, I think it will enhance our ability to address issues that come before us in the Substance Use Response Working Group. I have detailed a handful of the folks that I think we should be adding. As I understand it, you will hear testimony from others in the audience who want to also be considered for inclusion. I voice no opinion at this juncture and will reserve judgment in that regard, but do know that we do believe we can absorb additional membership at this juncture, and it will enhance our ability to do the job.
Thank you. Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, almost said morning. Thank you so much for the presentation and for being here. I was just curious, what are some things that have come out of this working group? Maybe I missed that in your presentation. I apologize if I did. Thank you.
No, absolutely. And Aaron Ford, for the record, I will invite Dr. Kearns to supplement what I'm about to say. But one of the things I'm most proud of, frankly, is the conversation that has focused on the opioid epidemic. We are the Substance Use Response Working Group, not the opioid response working group, but we have spent quite a bit of time talking about opioids, especially during the time period where my office was engaged in litigation against several opioid manufacturers, distributors, and others. We, incidentally, have brought in $1.2 billion. My office has in settlement funds to address the opioid crisis, and it will be coming over the next 20 years, and some litigation still pursues. And I mention that because one of the things that we do in the Surge Committee is to make recommendations. Let me be clear. The Surge Committee does not make determinations on how opioid funds are spent. We have no final determination in that regard. We make recommendations to those who do, and that's part of the important discussion relative to ascertaining the appropriate use of those funds. Aligned with that conversation has been conversations around harm reduction, conversations around other forms of wraparound services for substance use and substance abuse disorder, and just generally speaking, a notion of trying to ascertain the best ways to address the circumstance and to help those who are afflicted, as well as the members of the families who are afflicted with this circumstance. So I'm quite proud of that. But again, we speak beyond that, whether it's about methamphetamine, which incidentally is a very large problem in our state, and we look for ways to abate that crisis and abate that issue. We talk about the onset of brand new types of drugs, xylazine, for example, which does not respond to the same type of treatment on the spot that a person overdosing from an opioid can, and how that might be impacting our society and our communities here. And we look for ways, again, to work with harm reduction experts, but also the criminal justice system. There is sometimes an overlap in that regard. So, these are very important conversations that we have, and I'm proud of those, but I do want to offer Dr. Kearns an opportunity, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, to speak on this issue as well.
Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Kearns.
Thank you. This is Terry Kearns, Kerns for the record. And first, I wanted to address Committee Member Hafen's question a little more in terms of expanding the size of the surge. The way that the surge is formatted currently is that we realized that having a large group wouldn't have been the best way to go about coming to our recommendations. So the surge was split into 3 subcommittees. Those 3 subcommittees are prevention, and they also include harm reduction, treatment and recovery, and then response. So then the greater surge members split into those groups based off their interests, their background, education, and experience. And the subcommittees then work on coming up with the recommendation, hearing from subject matter experts. And each of those subcommittees comes up with their recommendations, and then they take that to the larger surge, and the larger surge then votes on all of the recommendations. So it's not lost on anyone. We probably could have 20 different subcommittees for all of the different topics within the substance use arena. However, for logistics, personnel, and funding, 3 is what we broke it out into. And then also, to add what we have done, the recommendations, we do submit a yearly annual report. And for example, the recommendations have gone to the program manager for the Fund for Resilient Nevada, and those are taken into account when they push forward their opportunities for asking for applications. And also through DHHS, Public and Behavioral Health, for the federal SOAR, the State Opioid Response Grant. They made that as one of their requirements, was that any of the programs that submitted that hit on any of the surge's recommendations, they would get additional priority in their ranking. So those are a couple of the ways that we work. And then also we support some of the other groups, such as the regional behavioral health policy boards, in either supporting theirs or giving them our recommendations. So if there's something on our recommendations that they would support as one of their bill draft requests, they would use that as well. So those are just a few ways that we highlight. And I would also say in the legislation that was very well written that set up the surge is that we were given, there's A through Q of what we're supposed to look at in that legislation, and then special populations. So what we also did on the work of the surge is split out those A through Q requirements in the legislation and assign them to the subcommittees to address. Some of them are cross-cutting, so those would be across all of them, so that they would be addressing those specific areas and then also looking at the special populations. I would highlight, if you haven't seen our surge annual report, to look at it, because it goes into the background, the research that was done, why it's needed, what special populations, what of those legislative mandates are we hitting on with our recommendations.
Thank you for those comments. Next, we have Assemblymember Nadeem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Attorney General, for the wonderful presentation and for making the changes. My question is on the line number 13. It says 1 member of the general public. For the additional changes, the 1 member of the general public will be included. So what is the criteria for the 1 member from the general public? Is there any specifications on the criteria?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Assemblymember Nadeem, for the question. At this juncture, I don't believe we have specific requirements for the general public, aside from being a member who is indeed from the general public, but who also has expertise to add to the discussion, whether it's a person who has been impacted, him or herself, by drug use or misuse, or whose family members may have, or they may have expertise in that regard. But again, let me defer and refer to my colleague, Dr. Kearns, for thoughts she may have in that regard as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Terry Kearns for the record again. I would agree with what Attorney General Ford said. As mentioned, we have had requests from members of the public, some who have been touched, some who haven't. Some are former members of the surge who, because they left their position, are no longer on it. So at this point, we would request applications, and then we would go through those applications as we did when we first started the surge, and have a board that would go through the applications and rank them and make a recommendation to General Ford.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Vice Chair Nguyen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, General, for being here, and of course, Dr. Kearns. My question is, with this large amount of members on here, have there been discussion with the way our state is? Obviously, we are one of the most diverse states in the country, and, I come from a bilingual household and, cultures that usually don't want to talk about problems, and obviously the opioid crisis affects all walks of life. Has there been efforts from the either working groups identifying members from multilingual households or multiple ethnic backgrounds that may contribute to the conversation a little bit more informed versus just the usual standard language as described in here?
Aaron Ford for the record. Assuming Nguyen, fantastic question. And I must say, frankly, I don't believe we've had a conversation specific to that description that you've just articulated there. And as I run through my my memory, I'm trying to ascertain the diversity of the committee as I sit here. I do believe we have diversity represented, but to your point, it may be certainly worth a conversation about ways to better incorporate the diversity that you're contemplating there. Dr. Kearns, correct me if I'm wrong in that regard, but I don't believe I've heard conversations specific to some of the member Nguyen's points.
Terry Kearns, for the record, you're correct. There have not been. We do have a diverse representation on the surge. One thing I would add also is there's the Advisory Committee on a Resilient Nevada who does make recommendations on the use of the funds out of the Fund for Resilient Nevada. One of the things we tried not to do was have duplicate in who's represented. So some of those groups may as well be represented on the ACRN if they're not represented on the surge.
And if I may, Aaron Ford for the record, one of the things I will note, however, is that there is an opportunity, there's a representative from each caucus here in this building to appoint a representative to the group. And I know that we've had Latino representation, female representation, African-American representation as well. So in that regard, your legislature has ensured that we've had some representation in that regard.
Thank you, General. And I think my perspective is more so on the language access piece, not necessarily those identifier that you said earlier, but I welcome to partner with your team and of course, the working group on just making sure that we address the bilingual, trilingual households, as we all know that the world comes to Nevada, and obviously this affects all walks of life. So in terms of not necessarily the membership of the organization or working groups, but perhaps it could be a priority within the working groups to address, multiple language. Gosh, should not give up coffee on Monday. To be able to do these things from much more on a 30,000 feet level, just to making sure that we encompasses those language access issues as well.
Yes, sir. And Aaron Ford, finally, for the record, charge heard and charge received. Rest assured, I will implement that as chair of this board, and Dr. Kearns will ensure that we get that done. Period.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Yes, Assemblymember Hibbets.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, General Ford. The reports and recommendations that were referenced earlier, where can we as legislators or members of the general public find these documents?
Aaron Ford for the record. We did submit that report to the legislature as required in the legislature, so LCB has certainly received it. But what I will do is ensure that my team, to the extent you want it specifically, Assemblymember Hibbets, we can email it to you. Or maybe I'll just, if it's okay, we'll give it to the chairperson and she can distribute it to the members of the committee. But it's also available on our website. Yeah, that's how it was initially distributed.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
Thank you, Attorney General. We'll go ahead and upload that report. Our committee staff are working on it currently. So if you will share it with the entire committee if you'll send it. Thank you so much for that. Committee members, last call for questions. Okay, with that, if you will step back, we will open up to hear testimony in support of Assembly Bill 19. Anyone in support here in Carson City, please come forward. Seeing no one in Las Vegas. No one besides Dr. Kearns, of course. And no one moving here in Carson City. AVH, is there anyone on the phone lines in support of Assembly Bill 19?
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers testifying in support at this time.
Thank you. Okay, then we will move into opposition for Assembly Bill 19. Anyone here in opposition, please come forward. Again, seeing anyone in Las Vegas, go ahead. Thank you. You may begin when you're ready. Please state your name. For the record, you have 2 minutes.
Paloma Guerrero, Clark County Public Defender, PALOMA, GUERRERO. This is a soft opposition. We do want this bill to pass. We did present a conceptual amendment to add a representative from either the Clark County Public Defender's Office or the Washoe County Public Defender's Office, only because we do serve the largest population of indigent clients who have substance use issues in the whole state. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one in Las Vegas, no one else in opposition here in Carson City. AVH, is there anyone in opposition on the telephone line?
Chair, there are no callers testifying in opposition at this time.
Thank you. We'll move to neutral. Anyone in neutral wishing to testify in Assembly Bill 19, please come forward at this time. You may begin when you're ready. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Assembly members. Thank you very much, Chairwoman. My name is Cody Finney, for the record. And I am here in the neutral position just to share that we did reach out. We had some trouble connecting, but we reached out to the Attorney General's office. We have also proposed a conceptual amendment to add a member to this committee from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. At the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, we are the single state agency getting the federal money for the state opioid response grant that Ms. Kearns mentioned, and we would like to have maximum synergy in their recommendations and the work that we're doing, and we believe that representation on this committee would help us do that. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Denise Bolaños, Bolanos, and I'm the Associate Director with Return Strong. We are in neutral position. We do support expanding this bill, but we do agree that it should include additional perspectives to be truly balanced and effective. Since the bill adds a representative from the DA's office, it's equally important to include someone from the defense community, such as a public defender, defense attorney, or a civil rights organization. We also support the inclusion of someone with lived experience, whether a formerly incarcerated individual or a family member of someone that is impacted by the justice system. Additionally, we believe a mental health professional should be a part of the group, since substance use and mental health challenges so often go hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you. With your permission, it sounds like that testimony is more in opposition. If you don't mind, we'll move it into opposition. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anyone else here in neutral at this time? Seeing no one in Las Vegas and no one moving here in Carson City. AVH, is there anyone on the telephone line in neutral?
Chair, there are no callers testifying in neutral at this time.
Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and close the bill hearing. Would you like to offer questions or comments, additional comments before we close?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aaron Ford for the record. Just to say that I will, as I've indicated, reserve judgment on the amendments that have been requested, and we will go back to the search committee and ask. sorry about that, and ascertain opinion in that regard. I will say that some of the membership that has been described does exist on the committee already. Someone with lived experiences, for example, mental health experts, they're already engaged in the committee, but we will again take these requests back, talk to the committee as a whole, and then submit a suggestion to you, Madam Chair, on how to proceed.
Thank you, Attorney General Ford, and your team. Thank you all for being here. We will officially close the bill hearing on Assembly Bill 19, and we'd like to thank you for your time and attention on this matter, so thank you so much. Okay, well, with that, we will move into our final order of business, which is public comment. So as a reminder, anyone here to offer public comment has 2 minutes to provide testimony. And you can provide public comment up to 24 hours after a hearing. Is there anyone here in person wishing to give public comment? Please come forward, take the table. You may turn the microphone on, state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin when you're ready.
Testing. Okay. For the record, Joseph Agliata, Agliata, pronounced Ayata. This is my first time doing this. I ask for your patience. I'm a recovery coach from Massachusetts originally. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, where the opioid crisis was a big deal and still is. Recovery has been a part of my life for 20 years, and I had left the recovery industry because I disagree with the disease model of addictions. I believe that in some other models, when I became a recovery coach, we had explored multiple pathways of recovery, which some do not include the disease model of addiction. So I believe that when someone is in legal trouble or have to be court mandated to AA and other such programs or facilities, there should be other options and multiple pathways so that others can make a decision. They can make a decision about whether they truly believe that this is scientific. Well, clients and professionals can agree upon whether or not the disease model is a scientific fact or not. I know that this is a minority opinion. In my experience of 20 years in the recovery world, I graduated the Teen Challenge program, which was endorsed by George Bush Jr. I was there for 3 years. I've seen many people make it. I've also seen many people die. I've lived with hundreds of people in recovery and thousands and thousands and thousands in recovery meetings. So I just wanted to propose that I believe that people should have an option. That they should know that these other programs, such as the Life Process Model by Stanton Peele or the Freedom Model, I can email some of that information. These other things do exist, and I just want people to know that they exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City wishing to offer public comment? Seeing no one in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the telephone line wishing to offer public comment?
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Members, that concludes our business for today. Thank you for a very expeditious meeting. I will remind you that our next meeting is on Wednesday, February the 19th at 1:30. We have 2 bill hearings scheduled, Assembly Bill 31 and Assembly Bill 60. With that, we are adjourned.